The early 2010s indie scene is a thing of beauty, let me tell you. It was this wonderful time where venues like Steam and the Xbox 360 marketplace were opening the floodgates and letting independent developers make their names on their platforms. The ever-colorful and imaginative indie scene that was always growing in corners of the internet like Newgrounds suddenly found itself supported by these easy-to-deploy upon and widely available global vendors, giving way to creative experiences actually receiving the magnitude of recognition they deserved, becoming memorable whether you played them or recognized it by word of mouth and iconography. These games were completely original IPs, games that just appeared out of nowhere and shook our idea of a genre to its core, probably giving the developers a comfy paycheck and maybe even driving them to improve the game in future updates or iterations, but for the most part they were of their time. The game I'll be talking about today was a part of the roguelike genre, which, as anyone playing indie games in the early 2010s can tell you, does not narrow down the selection at all. So let me just show you it. I think even just seeing it should, I don't know, bring you up to speed. Faster Than Light, FTL for short, was released September 14th, 2012, and is a space-themed roguelike with engaging combat fought on multiple fronts, spanning its focus across every aspect of your interstellar travels for immersive and challenging gameplay. It's a favorite of mine from the time. I've had it installed on my college work laptop as a little goof-off thing I could play offline whenever I didn't have any actual work to do, but another thing brought the game to mind more recently. In early 2020, the game received an update including Steam achievements as well as some other quality-of-life things. One day I randomly browsed past the game in my library while figuring out what to do and saw my friend was recently playing a modded version and scored some of these achievements. One in particular really caught my eye. He had beaten the final boss, the enemy flagship, on normal difficulty. That sounds really mundane, but I had never done that before since I was pretty bad at the game. But more interestingly was that only 10% of players who've played the game, since the achievements were added at least, had beaten the game on normal. Wow, I thought. Validation that other people struggled to beat this game just like I did, but also a great motivator. This game has a ton of variety in ship starts and strategies, as all good roguelikes have, yet I've never beaten the final boss in one clean run. That ends today, everybody. I'm taking the old reliable Kestrel and I'm gonna run this game till I finally put this beast to rest and free the star systems from rebellion tyranny. With my trusty crew of 2 sad motherfuckers I will never name in my runs, I just let the game name them for me, I'm confident this will be a walk in the park. I mean, really, I have dozens of hours in FTL. I remember doing pretty well up until the very end of the game. How bad could my first couple runs be? Yeah, okay. There's a lot to unpack here. FTL has a ton of systems at play, so I'm going to try and explain them in batches, and I'm going to start with travel and economy. The story of the game is that you work for the Galactic Federation and just got good intel on the Rebels' biggest weakness, the flagship. Unfortunately for you, the Rebels have begun their march towards the Federation base, and you are caught out half a dozen sectors away, meaning you'll have to jump from station to station to get to each sector's exit and evade Rebel capture. The stations will each have their own choose-your-own-adventure book style event, describing the happenings of what's going on and offering some limited choices you can take to handle said happenings. These events can be a great boon to obtaining more vitally important resources, but some are notoriously absolute shit shoots with no good outcomes for interaction. The main resource you would be considering for these absolute death trap scenarios is scrap. Scrap gets you everything and is used for all things. I'm talking buying fuel so you don't get stranded, missiles for your missile weapons, new weapons for your ship, new systems for your ship, new crew members, improving your existing systems, upgrading your power supply to actually utilize those new weapons and systems, repairing your hull, bribing people, paying tolls, getting her to call you back. Everything under the sun needs scrap. Some of the best lessons you can learn aside from handling the combat system to the best of your ability is stuff that will increase your scrap efficiency. Consider ditching missile weapons to remove your dependency on missiles that you have to buy each station. Take every last jump in a sector you can to maximize opportunities to get more scrap. Repair your hull to the bare minimum health that you would need to get through things. Be as frugal as you possibly can be. What the fuck?
Sir, do you care to explain why you bought a weapon that needs 3 energy when both the weapons and power supply can't afford that?
All of these different directions your money gets pulled towards makes each expense a tragedy, and each purchase feel like that much more of a boost to your survival chances. It's such an excellently designed economy that elevates everything else in the game. It can be difficult to fully optimize and get everything you want, but if you work with what you get and use the system wisely, it feels like you can pull a win out of almost all lost scenarios. That being said, some runs are more anointed than other ones. You could have runs that get events that will guarantee a combat without much reward, or you could get runs with events that's just a free weapon from an event. I mean, excuse me, what? Ship combat is the peanut butter to this game's PB&J. If there was anything anyone remembered about playing this, it's charging up your weapons, targeting vital systems, and missing every single fucking shot. There are many different approaches to this system, but the default Kestrel will start you off simple. A Burst Laser Mach 2 is one of the most damage-efficient weapons in the game, an Artemis to make use of missiles, and 3 Plain Jane human crewmates. From this humble beginning, any encounter in the 2 early sectors is more often than not a foregone victory already, making them the perfect grounds to learn the ropes. Your weapons will have a cooldown next to their name, and when they glow green and they're ready to fire, you can aim them at any room on the enemy ship, which should almost always be a room with a system in it, because damage dealt to those rooms will also remove power capacity from that system, crippling the ability to charge things like weapons or shields. Each weapon type has its own rules attached to it that gives everything a little more flavor. Our Burst Laser fires 3 1-damage shots, but each one can be stopped by a layer of the enemy's shields, meaning one miss on a 2-layer shield makes you do 0 damage. The Artemis fires a single 2-damage missile. It's easier to miss and accomplish nothing by shooting it, but missiles bypass all shields, making it an attractive option in the early game to crack the shell of tougher opponents. You'll encounter and be able to purchase many others, like beams that can deal a bunch of damage in one fell swoop but get stopped by and don't pop any layers of shields. Ion weapons deal no damage outright, but any system they hit gets disabled for a brief period with no ability to repair it. And flak cannons fire a spread shot of 3 to 5 projectiles that don't do much damage alone, but absolutely shred shields due to their high hit count. Flak is one of my favorites, so I'm just going to put it right up here. Aside from the munitions, ships can also take a more indirect approach with drone systems, costing their own material to fire off, but they have a large amount of defense and offense options, which I could go into, but I won't, because I don't actually use drones. You know, I'm not a nerd. Ship encounters are done in real time. Projectiles fire out at an appropriate speed and arrive at the target at different times, which makes for some really cool moments, like when your laser weapon shoots while the enemy drone is right in front of it, destroying the drone, which forces the enemy to deploy another. I would want to tell you that the diversity of weapons allows runs to feel interesting and wildly unique from each other, but if I'm being honest, for my scenario specifically, the base loadout of the Kestrel is already pretty focused and close to everything that I would need. Give me some more laser or flak firepower, full shield upgrades, and some healthy evasion rate increases, and that's all I need to power through most of the sectors, which is not to say that the other options aren't powerful, it's just the Kestrel already sets you up for success in the shoot them till they die stratagem. If I was starting with the other ships you could unlock, I could trade that strong firepower for a head start on other systems. The other half of the game's main loop involves controlling your crewmates and choosing how they interact with the ship, including hand-to-hand combat when you're invaded. It should be immediately obvious that if you lose all your crewmates, it's game over, but the game can do a pretty good job of making that possible threat feel devastating. Having a crew member man a system gives it a slight improvement to performance, like more evasion for the engines and reduced cooldown for the weapons, and if they keep manning that exact station, they gain experience that can level them up and further improve that bonus. This makes each crew member very valuable when kept alive, except that one. Back when I said weapons should target systems to damage them and prevent the enemy from fighting back, there's an additional consideration where you can instead put focus on killing the crew. Weapons like breaching missiles and fire beams are meant to make hazards across the ship that can either cause damage over time or prove a severe threat to crewmates if not dealt with, dragging people away from their stations so they can deal with those problems, and removing their bonuses from systems. Sometimes you and your enemy will fight in the vicinity of a planetary hazard like an ion storm or a supernova that will intermittently cause power outages or fires on both ships, putting both sides in a mad scramble to divert power and kill the other before another warning comes up. There is another obvious option in combat. Your FTL drive will charge throughout encounters, and if it's fully charged, you can just leave the area, cutting off chances for a reward, but potentially getting you out of a costly fight. Unfortunately, the AI also gets this option. You'll get a short period of time to stop them from jumping by shooting their engines or getting rid of their pilot, but if you miss your chance, they're gone. Letting a rebel ship get away with this additionally will make them jump the pursuing rebel fleet up ahead of schedule, costing you time you could have spent exploring the area for scrap, or maybe even putting you directly into enemy territory. Rebels you encounter in the encroaching enemy lines are endgame equipped, regardless of when you face them, and with escaping being your obvious priority, winning a fight against them won't permit you almost any rewards as you don't have time to scavenge and take any supplies from them. Fighting within the Rebel fleet even puts you under risk of the Rebels' own hazard, the anti-ship battery that sends a giant fucking thing through your ship for a lot of damage. The solution to this difficult scenario? Just fucking leave, see you later! Okay. I'm catching back up with the skill level I was at playing this game way back when. I've got a pretty good loadout, good scrap economy for upgrades. I even did a quest event and got an augment that gives my shield an initial health bar each fight that can cover any projectile. It's time to take the fight to my arch nemesis, the final sector, the flagship in sight. The final area has a ton of repair stations to get your hull's health back up, empty beacons with kitted out Rebel ships to fight in case you need more scrap for upgrades, and there's an alternate lose condition looming overhead. The flagship will jump around spaces just like you, and if it's able to occupy the Federation base station for 3 turns, you'll automatically lose the run without a fight. I'm already down to throw hands, and as I engage the flagship, I feel a bit of my muscle memory already taking over. You see, the enemy has a ton of firepower with special singular munition systems manned by 1 person each, meaning you have to target each weapon individually if you want to fully nullify all the threats. But from my memory, the missile launcher was the only absolute necessity to take down. With good evasion and maxed out shields, everything else can be dodged. So you know what that means? Fuck this guy in particular, plague upon you. Okay, I'm actually dog-walking them. We're trading blows, but my firepower is just way better than theirs, and I'm outpacing their damage. I can really easily bring them down to 0. But I haven't forgot about one of the toughest parts of this fight. Each time you beat the flagship, you only take a chunk of it off. To fully defeat the Rebels, the flagship needs to be beaten 3 separate times. I could hop over to a repair station, but the flagship is already in line at the base. I'm worried if I run out of time to come back and stop the flagship from actually just outright winning, so I immediately jumped back in. I only really remember the first phase was an absolute stomp, so I figured the next phases wouldn't be that much worse. The flagship adds on to its strategy each phase. Phase 2 is defined with a really robust drone system defending from projectiles and sending infiltration robots to mess with your crew, supporting the remaining artillery we have from Phase 1. The drones are a complication, but it's not really enough to push things into the Rebels' favor. This is going a lot smoother than I remember the fight ever going. Things are still looking pretty good. Power surge? That's normally for ion storms, where you would lose control of some of your systems for a short period. I still don't think that should be too troublesome. Oh. Yeah, I never got to this part. Okay, let's try again. I've not talked about some pretty vital components to the game that can maybe give us a bigger edge. I casually glossed over the Zoltan shield I got last run, which is actually a really good talking point for both augments and some of the races of FTL. Shops and random encounters can offer a variety of different passive effects offered up for your 3 different augmentation slots, a lot of which have some really useful and practical application, but some are outright insane. Like, don't get me wrong, jumping back to any beacon in the sector you've previously visited is a nicety I wouldn't turn down. That can get you out of some pretty tough jams, but make it face off with powerhouses like starting fights with your weapons fully loaded, getting 15% more scrap from all sources, or even just the Zoltan shield, and you start to realize how high the ceiling can get for these. Augments can be hard to guarantee though, as they're either randomly purchasable or a result of a random quest, so they are far from necessary to get the win. If you can come by one, it's either a nice surprise or a free bit of scrap you can sell at the next shop. The race-specific ones are okay-ish for the most part. The thing that makes me appreciate them is the flavor they add to the identities of each species. When traveling between sectors, you sometimes end up in race-specific territories where the race's ship can be unlocked for future runs and their augment can be obtained often through some kind of quest. If you're familiar with how the race behaves and what their strengths are, you can actually kind of know what strategies you'll encounter while traveling through their turf. Just as a side note, the concept art for the game is worth a search on Google. The artists really nailed the aesthetic while also adding on to the cohesion of all the different races' designs. It's really cool to look at. Mantis people move fast and fight hard, so any encounter with them will almost always include a teleporter and some crew combat, with an augment that speeds them up even more so. Rock people are hardy and are good at putting out fires, so they have a tendency of picking fights with you in asteroid belts and near supernovas, so you're fighting them and the environment, and they have an augment that can occasionally blank hull damage done to their ship. Engis are handy repairmen, but bad fighters, so traveling in Engi sectors is a lot more calm with more stores available. They tend to favor more defensive drone strategies over gunning you down, and they use an augment that benefits onboard drones, the fucking nerds. Zoltans are these weird energy engineers. They have a lower health total than all of the other races, but they provide power to the stations that they man, and when they die, they explode and damage the enemies in the room. Otherwise, they fight with pretty standard firepower, and their region is pretty normal. There are also 3 other rarer races. There's the Slugs, who at times inhabit nebula sectors and are immune to mind control due to their telepathy. The Lanius, metallic oxygenless murder machines you can find in abandoned sectors with the ability to suck the air out of the rooms they occupy. And the Crystals. I've never encountered the Crystals. Apparently you need to go side questing for a Crystal crewmate and activate an ancient device to teleport to their sector. You get special crystal weapons that can pierce a layer of shields. Sounds cool, I guess. I would know. Pirates across all sectors have mixed crews and are doing general bullying of others for scrap in the forms of slave trades and ambushing cargo ships, which adds a lot of hostility and mistrust into the already pretty desolate environment of space. Which also gives a lot of justification and satisfaction to you dealing with them. You can even save slaves from pirate trade ships. Hey there, big guy. Glad we could save you from that slave ship. Don't worry about them getting away. We set like 12 fires across their ship right before they sent the peace offer. They're dying. It's hilarious. Now, we could drop you off at the next station with some basic supplies so you can try and make a new life. We've got some chips and half a Baja Blast to sate you over for that. Or you could join our crusade against the rebel tyranny. It's a tall order, I admit, but you could make a difference. Okay, I guess I shouldn't be surprised I don't understand rock language. Oh! Could you say that all again? I'll get behind the camera this time and I'll read the subtitles. The last thing I didn't talk about much were the additional systems you can add to your ship to perform more functions. They're much more costly than anything I've mentioned before, what with needing additional power from your reactor as well as potential upgrades that increase the energy cost with it, but their utility can easily make up for it. I'd say there's a couple of categories these systems can be divided into, and the first category is going to be the crew-focused systems, with the teleporter being the primo option for invading the enemy ship to leave no one alive, letting you teleport 2 crewmates to and from the enemy ship for hit-and-run system destruction. The player can make much better decisions on their own ship for invaders than the AI can, like locking them in a room and opening the airlock to watch them slowly suffocate while bashing against the door, only to break it open and realize they have more doors, trapping them, suffocating them. The AI does not consider this option, so your invaders can perform so much better and safer destruction than they can. If you execute this strategy well enough, you could start reliably getting that delicious scrap bonus for killing the entire enemy crew instead of destroying their ship. The clone bay is what I consider an accessory system for this strategy, allowing you to clone one of your crewmates in the case of their death to preserve their experience. The other class of system is what I'd call general disruption, starring modules like mind control and hacking. These systems both give you avenues of messing with the enemy game plan, mind control letting you take one of their crew members temporarily, and hacking letting you latch a drone onto any given system and intermittently draining of its power. These are both really cool concepts. Both of them get to create unique scenarios and influence the fight in interesting ways, though the optimal strategy for committing murder is pretty simple and ubiquitous. That being that the typical disruption targets for the opponents often target the evasion rate by either mind controlling their pilot or hacking their engines or cockpit so that your volley of hellfire can actually strike true. Hacking is widely considered the more versatile of these two options, and it's definitely a system that can take you over the top with the flagship. There's a battery overcharge system for utility, gets a couple extra bars of core power for a short amount of time to use on different systems. It's okay, I don't use it. And then there's cloaking. I've done research on what people think optimal strategy is in this game for beating the flagship, and while some things are mentioned as good to have for the fight, I struggle to find almost any material that does not suggest cloaking as the perfect choice for the final sector. At base level, activating your cloak will turn you invisible for 5 seconds, in which your evasion is raised by 60%, your enemy's weapons will not charge, and the systems like drones and teleporters can't interact with you. Considering the fact that late game ships will have an evasion rate with upgraded engines and trained pilots that'll come out to about 50%, your cloak cloak can effectively act as a dodge button for incoming projectiles if you time it right. This system alone can save you so much damage. It's really not necessary to upgrade it, as each tier just adds another 5 seconds of cloaking, which is crazy, but a bit too expensive to justify. Just cloaking existing on your ship can turn the tide of battle. It's such a valuable utility that the AI may turn its focus away from your weapons and shields to make sure you can't get a second cloak off. It's that concerning compared to your actual offensive firepower. The scrap that you save from minimizing hull damage you need to repair if you have cloaking available for the last couple sectors might even just pay itself off before you use it for the flagship battle, which is honestly a relief. Your hull is a nerve-wracking resource to manage throughout the entire run, but at the end sectors, it can get real tight. Back when I played as a younger lad, I'd just fork up the scrap to bring my ship to full health, but it's necessary to run your health a little lower to the ground to keep on paying for ship upgrades to help yourself in the fight. Getting better at ship combat means handling fights more succinctly and efficiently, but as you progress through sectors, you'll come across a greater average of power and utility within your opposition. They'll have tools that can slow you down so their volley can cripple your weapons, locking you in and lowering your health bit by bit while you have to repair. Finding yourself in a long stretch of shopless jumps can have your huge scrap piles and high firepower seem worthless as your fuel reserves diminish and your hull creeps further into the red, sometimes pushing you to run from fights or choose the passive options in encounters to try and preserve what little health and resources you have left. Stickier situations could leave your ship's fate in the hands of luck. Here I am with 1 health in an asteroid field trying my best to get the enemy's missile weapon down, but even if I'm trying... We fucking win those because I'm the best there's ever been!
Who do you think you are? I am!
This run is a perfect example of the scenario I mentioned as well. I'm really stocked to the teeth here. The only thing that could make it better would be cloak. Okay, yeah, this is the run. Alright, we're ready for the run back. Let's get through this really quickly. Cloaking in the initial phase lets me save any of the damage the flagship would have gotten off, so phase 1 goes off without a hitch. Phase 2 can actually go smoothly now that I reserved the cloak to hide from the half a dozen drones during the power surge. Some focused fire and managing the anti-personnel drone, and phase 2 goes down just as easy as well. Uncharted territory for us yet again. We're at phase 3. The flagship is down to its heavy lasers and its missiles, but it's got an added Zoltan shield and its swap strategy to mind control and a teleporter to go for a full crew kill. They mind control my munitions crewmate to try stopping my volleys. That's a setback, but in good news, the teleported invaders end up directly in my airlock. Fantastic. My upgraded doors system lets me stave off the teleported invaders while I let the engine person distract the munitions crewmate. Everything is still under control at this point. The flagship actually has a unique behavior where instead of calling back their people to recuperate and then send another wave of invaders after that, they actually try to send another wave of people immediately and just dogpile you. Luckily for me though, I think I'm gonna be fine. Power surge. If it's the drones from before, they shouldn't be too much additional. Where did those even get shot from? No, really, run the numbers on me. I wanna know exactly where those got shot from. Where's my game theory on that? The ship is getting pretty hectic at this point of the battle, and I end up making a pretty crucial mistake. The med bay is fully down, and when they mind control one of the crews repairing it, I decide to back off and conserve Rockman's health. In my mind, the mind-controlled crew would stay in that room and attack the system, but since it was fully destroyed already, they decided to go run into the neighboring room and just fucking execute the 1 health crewmate I set to the side. Whoops, my fault, original gangster. Man, that's gotta be an awful way to go. I'd say there's worse, but I can't think of something off the top of my head. Good on you for breaking that mind control, by the way. I'm sure that's a load off your mind. See, he shot him in the head. Jokes aside, that loss does make things a little trickier. I've starved most of the ship of oxygen to clear fires, and now I've got to spend precious time fixing hull breaches and getting everything back online, while the enemy mind control occasionally forces the 2 remaining non-pilot crew to fight out and dwindle their remaining health. What sucks even more is that sometimes the power surge doesn't even fire the lasers, it renews the Zoltan shield, and I've got to chip away at it again. The flagship's crew is down to the bare minimum, however, so no more invasions. I just have to go through their measly firepower, and there's a laser surge that I can use cloaking to get through. It's a battle of inches, but slowly and surely, we gain the upper hand. And with time, we got it. That should not have taken me that many years to do, but I'm glad I came back to conquer this game. FTL is a old Steam game, so during any sale it's like $3, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. Even watching back footage of my runs making this video made me want to fire up the game again and try something new, especially when you can unlock and play with different layouts and ships. It is an excellently crafted game that deserves its status as one of the best roguelikes, and it's emblematic for me of a time of indie game craftsmanship and innovation that inspires me to no end. Shit, I've never even seen what the ending is like for this game. I almost forgot. Let's see it. Maybe it's some cool art or something. Oh. Just that and some credits. That's fine, if not a little anticlimactic. I mean, what if this video you're watching right now just stopped and went to credits? Thanks for watching the video. If I learned any lesson doing this one, it'd be don't plan to have the first animations you ever make in Blender a part of your YouTube video. I don't regret it, but maybe you should do some kind of practice before this. I want to try and refine my modeling and animation work, so you can expect the next couple of videos to include more of this kind of stuff. The next video will likely be next year though, since I'm going to be working on a game and maybe some other stuff in the meantime. Regardless, it hopefully won't take as long as this video took. That's really all I gotta say. I have a Blue Sky you can follow, but I really do not post on any social medias, but it's there. Thanks to all the people you've seen across the credits on screen, and I'll see you later.